What's going on?
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts feeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll still be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll still be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
Where did October go?
Gone. Almost history. Almost history.
October 26th. This is the last weekend in October already.
Yep. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
After this one, no more.
I was having a tough time reconciling that in my mind the other day when I looked out. I was having coffee on the deck and I'm seeing all the trees in my neighborhood, orange, yellow, red. And I'm like, huh, I didn't get a memo on this. When did this happen?
It just
Good
popped
God.
out of
No.
nowhere.
As you can see, we're waiting for the great pumpkin to arrive.
Yes. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. It is our Sunday night live show with myself, George Lopez, and Mr. Ken DaCosta. And thank you guys all for joining us in the chat. Good to see you again. I hope everything is going well for all of you. For us, we are thrilled to death to bring you for the next 2 hours the best in paranormal topic and discussion. And we've got some great guests joining us tonight. Here's a wonderful, weird aspect of the universe. We were supposed to have Taylor, Paranormal Teej, on last week, and she got really, really sick. We blame that on Robert. Then we were supposed to also try and get David in at an earlier time, and David was out of the country, and we definitely can blame it on Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that a little bit later on. But it's a night of haunted dolls, Ken.
Yeah, we thought that it would be a swell thing because I've been surrounded by these things all week, all weekend, for whatever reason. We had a very nice presentation. Cody Satari, John Zaffis at the Alley Theater last night. Wonderful. Each of them brought some doll type people to the event. So we thought it would be a great idea to invite along two of the most prominent people that we've had on before to catch up a little bit. And what is this thing, the phenomenon of haunted dolls? Well, I'm glad you asked because we might have some answers tonight.
Yes. And again, what we've decided to do is kind of give Paranormal Teej Taylor an honorary title of guest host. Why? Because Taylor has about 300 questions for David Sloan about Robert the Doll and the field also.
Mhm.
Again, she's also recently had an encounter with Annabelle. So we're hitting all of the marks for tonight, and I'm glad you guys are here to join us for all of this. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, again, for the benefit of our channel, to hit that subscribe button. Very important if you haven't done so before. Also, the post notification bell, very important. That is for you guys to know when anything's coming up on our show, which we have just a unbelievable list of wonderful shows and more to come. And finally, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. That's important for the algorithm. That lets the computer systems at I don't know where they're at, NASA, CIA, Disney. That hey, people are interested in us and they're enjoying us, so we'll promote more. So that's what we're hoping to have done. So that thumbs up is important, guys. So if you do a thumbs up, make sure you put in the chat that you gave us a thumbs up. Give me even a little thumb symbol. That would be wonderful. Love to put that on screen as well. But let's not wait any further, Ken, because we got a lot to cover. And,
Sure.
again, we've got David up in Pittsburgh. So we don't know if he's exhausted because it's such a time change from Key West
Yeah, I know. It's and listen, feel
and jet
free to
lag.
share the links to the show. Wake the neighbors, wake the children, share the links to the show. Spread the word. Okay, so moving forward, if you've ever scrolled through her videos, and why wouldn't you? You already know that she has one of the most intriguing haunted doll collections out there and had experiences that will make you rethink what's possible. And she just got back from a trip to see one of the most infamous haunted objects in the world, as mentioned, Annabelle. So we're going to talk about what that experience was like and what it's like to live with a room full of dolls that might not be as quiet as they look, and how she separates fact from fear about these things. Welcome tonight's co-host, Paranormal Teej.
Ooh, it was my turn to do that. Sorry.
Yes,
Hello,
and
I was
everybody.
also clicking comments. Hey, Teej. Okay, you're all set. Have a good show.
Oh, thanks. All right. Thanks for having me back after trivia, I appreciate
Right. Well, we figured who else? Who is more prepared? Who is more well versed in this subject than you? So, bringing you in tonight to ask the probing questions that only people who own haunted dolls would know.
I'm so excited.
Okay, I'll bet you are. So, let's not waste any more time because tonight we're welcoming back someone who's become almost synonymous with one of the most famous haunted objects in the world, Robert the Doll. He's an author, a historian, and a paranormal researcher, and has spent years uncovering Robert's story and preserving his legacy down in Key West, Florida. But recently, he took that research even further, all the way to Germany, to visit the place where Robert was originally made. This is going to be fascinating tonight. So, we're going to talk about that journey, what he discovered there, and of course, what it's really like to live and work so closely with a doll that's set to have a life of its own. So, welcome back to Dead Air, David Sloan. Hi, David.
Hey,
Hey.
great to see everyone.
I thought you went to Ireland too.
I did. I did. We just got back from Ireland. We'd been to Germany in May. So, Germany was more to explore the origins of Robert the Doll, and Ireland was more to explore my drinking origins.
Hey,
Ah,
he fits right in. I gotta love this guy. And by the way, David, please don't be intimidated by Paranormal Tease's unbelievable amount of followers on social media.
I
Uh,
know. I think it's fantastic. And with a doll collection like that, I am not the least bit surprised. I was watching some of the videos earlier, and the ones with them moving is like, whoa, It's pretty incredible, and I like
Very wild.
I like your approach to the paranormal too. It's pretty cool. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, they're all very conversant, David. You know, they have long talks, they take long walks on the beaches, they do a lot of things together,
yeah.
you know.
I went to
So
a Post Malone concert. Dick went to Post Malone. That happened.
Oh my God.
So
a lot of dolls on this show tonight, including George and I,
Yes.
because these people, we all have imaginary friends tonight, but they have real ones. So looking forward to it. This is going to be a way to kick off Halloween. This is going to be fun tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I want to feed into the information to start creating the dynamic between Taylor and David. And the best way I could think about doing that, Ken, is kicking off with her interactions with Annabelle and her reasons why it was, I guess, right down the road of her thoughts and opinions in regards to Robert the Doll, because I think it speaks volumes. So, Taylor, if you want to start with that, that would be great. And then David might have some comments about it.
If you'd
yeah,
like to, Teej, you want to start with the video?
Oh,
sure.
wait, before we do anything, so I can answer this question, everybody wants to know, is that Robert behind David? And do you want to explain that real quick, David, so people don't start apologizing in chat?
Yeah, yeah. People don't need to apologize. I'll get more into the story, but this is an effigy of Robert that we created to invite one of the spirits that inhabits the real doll into this one. It was for a Fantasy Fest parade last year. But let's hear about the Annabelle visit first.
Yeah, that's a story in itself, David. So, okay, we got to hear about this. What made you decide to go? Just curiosity, or was there something even more than that?
Yeah, so I have been really passionate about researching Annabelle's case for a long time now, because I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions surrounding her. And I've also had a lot of questions about like what is actually going on with her because the Warrens did her original investigation, and at that time, their interviews of Ed and Lorraine saying, well, it is impossible for a human spirit to inhabit a vessel. And so she was automatically labeled demonic. And if you look at her activity, it's pretty standard haunted doll stuff that happens in my house, like moving around and relocating. There was a scratching incident after she was disrespected, but that again didn't happen until she was disrespected. So I just always had questions of like, is this actually a case of demonic activity, or was this just the lens that she was viewed within because they did not believe human spirits can inhabit dolls? And in my experience, they absolutely can. I have seen that again and again and again. So I've just always been particularly curious of what is actually going on with Annabelle. So, there are so many different things that people say. There are so many misconceptions about her story. And so I felt like there was no better way to get the information of what's going on and kind of how her case has been handled than to go myself and kind of form my own opinions. So that is why I chose to go. And what I experienced there was far different than what I expected.
Yeah, we're taking a look at. Do we want to play the whole thing? Yeah,
Why not?
you can moderate this right over it. So there's Annabelle. There's the fake Annabelle, I think.
Yeah, that's the movie doll that they had there as well.
Movie doll.
They had a variety of other objects there from their museum as well. There was a lot more of those. And to be honest with you, I had a lot of questions after viewing the collection in particular, because as you'll see right here, there's things like voodoo dolls. There were objects used in rituals and witchcraft and things like that. And they were all kind of put into this negative light. And what I didn't expect when I went was kind of the fine line between like, are these things actually evil and negative like they've been portrayed, or is this an issue of cultural misunderstanding? The one thing that I found extremely interesting, and I was very surprised by this, was there was no, at least when I went, there was no education given on any of these objects. So it was kind of left up to the public's opinion, to
Mm.
formulate an idea of, what to make of these things. So it was basically just a walkthrough in a U, and you just walked around and looked at them and you read the little sign in front of them. And I just felt like there was a large, a missed opportunity to educate about these objects, their history, the cultures that they're from, because they're obviously from very different cultures, religions, spiritual backgrounds than the Warrens. And it's kind of framed within this Christian lens. There are prayers on the walls, there's crosses on all the boxes, there's a priest there, there's all of these different things, and kind of no
Mm.
explanation was given. And I wish that there would have been some education given on the cultures that those came from a more objective lens, if that makes sense.
So let's call it what I think it is. Was this just a matter of getting as many people through there as possible rather than educating anybody?
That's what it seemed like to me. We were talked to twice when we were in there. One was when we gave our wristband at the door, and the second time was when we approached Annabelle and they said, "Do you want us to take a picture?" That was the only time we were spoken to throughout the exhibit, which is always a concern for me. When I take it as a huge responsibility of mine having haunted objects to educate about them, who they are, safety practices, misconceptions, and I felt like none of that was done. Nobody even talked about Annabelle. It was just like, okay, you're gonna walk past her, take your picture, and you're out. And so I feel like I wish they at least explained, like, hey, here's what a haunted object is, because there were so many people there that had no idea what they were walking through. They wanted something fun to do around Halloween time,
Mm.
and with the movies coming out. And especially with the movies, I think there's even more of a responsibility to share, like, here's the movie version and here's the not movie version. Like, let me tell you who Annabelle is. And that just wasn't done. And I thought that was unfortunate, because I would have loved to see that. Something else of note, not a single person besides us said hello to her, talked to her, nothing. She was pretty much a photo prop there. So that
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know, that kind of hurt me for her. I'm all about, respect for spirits, and she wasn't really given the time of day by anybody. So my husband and I tried to talk to her as much as possible, and the energy there was not bad. It was actually really upsetting. So
Yeah. I think that, you know, what happens is with lack of information comes all these theories
right.
and the hype. And it, we mentioned at the top of the show, we talked a little bit about it after the show last night with John, who told us a little bit about the background. Now, David, you study these things. Do you have an opinion on this particular object, Annabelle? Who I don't think it's out of the, it's not out of the pale to say these are probably the two most iconic haunted dolls on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Robert the Doll and Annabelle. So, what are your thoughts on how that's being handled as opposed to what you do with the Robert the Doll experience, where you do spend time with people and obviously you're traveling the world to do background on him? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I've got so many. There's a lot to unwrap there. Um, you know, one of the things I think is very important nowadays. We've got paranormal and we have paranormal entertainment. So I think it's very important to differentiate the two. And I think with Annabelle right now, it's giving a lot of people who have heard about her the opportunity to see her, which is great because so many people have heard about her for all of these years. And I think there's the entertainment aspect to it as well. I mean, she's going on tour. They're giving people what they want, and not going as deep into these things. If you look at Annabelle's history, I mean, you can do some digging online, and there's different stories about, you know, there's the Twilight Zone episode that came out at about the same time with Talkie Tina, and they say, "Oh, that was the inspiration; it was all faked." But then, there's people who are close to the family who say, "No, no, no, this is all very real." And I think paranormal is very personal. We're all in that search to find what's on the other side. And I love what Teej is saying about, her and her husband were the only ones who talked to the doll. And I think that respect is very important. But you never know what people are going to get when they're there. Some people might walk through and then they might have some encounter that introduces them to the paranormal and starts them on a journey that really leads them to a better understanding of this world we live in and what's really around us and what might be on the other side. Uh,
Hmm.
because I think once you open that right door in the paranormal, it takes you for a ride.
There's no
And
doubt.
and I think every ride is very personal. One thing I will say about Robert the doll, there are a lot of haunted dolls out there, and I do not discredit any of them because I believe any object that you put enough energy into has the ability to become a haunted object. What I will say of the most popular haunted dolls out there, Robert's the only one with a documented history that goes back to 1904, where people were talking about it, doing unusual things, and being haunted before anybody had any benefit from it, before anybody had any fame, before anybody had any money, when people were looked at as weirdos or crazy for being involved in a haunted doll. And that's what makes Robert the doll very unique, and why I think it's safe to say he's the world's most haunted doll. That's all subjective too. But Annabelle, wow. I mean, these movies, this is done.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that is done for haunted dolls, and we can get more into it later, but the history of dolls containing spirits goes back a long, long time, and I think it's
Mhm.
an important part of our culture.
Let me ask you both this now, with the thoughts you have on the Annabelle situation, the history of that particular object. How does that make you feel about your own collections? When you look at that from 10,000 feet through that lens as someone who's a caretaker, a steward for these objects, how does that make you reflect, you David, on your time with Robert, and Tej with you and your collection?
To
Go
be
ahead,
honest
Tej.
with you, it breaks my heart. It actually breaks my heart a little bit, because there are things about Annabelle that remind me a lot, actually, of where is he? Jer, who's right here, the teddy bear. He has continued to be
Uh-oh,
one
we
of the most that he has done and does just impress me to no end. And, a lot of his activity reminds me a lot of her activity, like a lot of movements, a lot of, he gets upset about something or gets his feelings hurt and he's going to throw stuff. He's going to, we've had big things like that. And, he's a 6-year-old little boy.
Hmm.
And it breaks my heart because I look at him and it's like, he gets to, live in a home and be cared for and be understood.
How is it every time T starts talking about her dolls, this happens?
Yeah,
Every time she starts
Yeah,
freezing up, it's an
frozen up.
energy thing to say the least. And I think a little bit with you too, David, in prior interviews.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's interesting because it's been every time that she talks that she says that doll's name.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Hey, Tej, if you want to reboot, go out, come back. We'll just go on with David here, and hopefully you can hear us.
Yeah,
Okay, you'll be back. So, David, I'm going to ask you the same question, reflecting back on this now, because obviously, when you talk about Robert, this is an object with tremendous longevity,
yeah,
going back to 1904.
yeah. So It bothers me personally when people disrespect Robert, or because I see the child spirit in there, I see the multiple spirits in there, and anybody who gets the same repetition day after day, they're going to get bored. Um, so I think nurturing a spirit, you do it just like a child, especially when this main spirit is a child. So, like when I set up for the tours, we think that the one of the primary spirits in Robert is a little Bahamian girl who I call Abby because she was part of the Abbott family, and this ties into the angry nanny legend. But when I'd set up for the tour, I'd set up chairs and I'd say, "Oh, guess how many people we have tonight, Abby?" And I'd count in Spanish, I'd count in German, and kind of teach her how to, I'd try to mix things up. And then I bought a book on Bahamian history from the time that this little girl's parents would have been in the Bahamas. And I'd read a little paragraph each night setting up. And I do these things to try to nurture the doll. And look, I don't know if these things work. Like when I did them, I said, I didn't know that it would be beneficial, but that's what I felt I should do. And I perceived a stronger relationship between us as I did that. So, a lot of this is just testing things out and seeing what works. Paranormal is very personal, and I'll probably say that a bunch of times. But so for me, yeah, there's that necessary respect, and there are the TV shows that will go out there and they'll yell at the spirits, and they'll they'll call everything a demon, and that's paranormal entertainment because demons sell. The stuff that's out there is for a reason, and I don't fault anybody doing it because, if you love the paranormal and you don't want to be an accountant or you don't want to do something else and you can make money doing something that you love, that's what you're going to do. And you've got the algorithms, the things like that. So it'll suck people in, but it's just like reality TV. And I think most of us are smart enough to look at things and realize what's paranormal and what's entertainment.
Yeah, I think there's an obsession. Okay, Teej, you're back.
Yeah,
The
I talked about
doll who
Jared. I got
shall
taken
not
down.
be the doll who shall not
Yeah.
be named, because every time you do, it's like they're messing with you.
This is like the third time that this has happened with him on your show. I'm so sorry.
It
Literally, I talk
is.
about him, and it's like, let me show you what I can do, and then I'm gone. So
You
I'm so
give them a
sorry.
good
All of your
talking to.
screens turned black, and I disappeared into cyberspace. So
We definitely want to get into David's trip, but I have one more question for you. Now, convince me because I come from a different mindset on this. I don't believe a spirit can possess an object. I believe that it's more a case of it's spirit adjacent.
I agree.
Like there's an accompanying factor. This idea, because we brought this up last night at the presentation, how they felt about it. Because this idea of possessed dolls,
Yeah.
possessed objects, I'm more of the mind that that's the best term that I can use. Spirit adjacent, where they're
Yes.
visited or maybe constant companionship that affects them physically. I don't believe there's an entity inside of a doll that's making it go boogie, boogie, boogie. So
Yes.
I'm curious to see it because you guys are always around this. How do you come down on that?
I would agree with that. Like, I don't think it's making an inanimate object animate, if that makes sense. Like, in my
Right.
opinion, it's more of like, I like to call the vessel like a home base, right? Like, it's something that this particular spirit is attached to for some reason, and they continue to return to it. So, like in our house, we don't just have paranormal activity in our haunted doll room, right? Like, we have it all over our house. They're not in there, in and around their vessel all the time. They can travel at will. They can come and go as they please, just like any other spirit. The vessel is just something that is kind of like a home base that they pop back to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And David, how do you come down on that?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And you go back far enough, and it used to be that dolls would be made to call down the gods to teach children about them.
Mm.
And it wasn't just like, though, this is to show you what God is like. It was, this is the God. So you were calling down these energies into the dolls. And I've done experiments up at Fort East Martello, because the entire place is very haunted. It's not just Robert the doll. And we have a lot of dolls there. People will bring dolls that they say are haunted. They don't want anymore. We get some other weird ones. I've bought dolls that are not haunted so that we can do tests. And we'll take a certain doll and we'll direct energy into it to see if we can make it haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I did this, we had a little doll and I put her in a rocking chair and I put a K2 meter on her. And I started telling a story that everybody would direct their energy into this doll. And after about a week, the K2 meter started going off where, for the first week it was doing nothing. And then after about a month, we got the chair to start rocking. So I think, if you go somewhere where George Washington slept, they're going to say, oh, it's George
Right.
Washington's ghost haunting this place. I think there's energy all around us. And I think if we focus on an object and we start talking about that object, spirits, they can't eat sandwiches when they need energy. They rely on us. They rely on our emotions. They rely on our laughter, our anger, our fear. So when we bring those elements, that's where they eat. So if we focus those elements on any object, I think that's where the spirits go.
Yeah, I think that you collectively can create thought forms,
Mhm.
which becomes something in the physical environment, and it's not far fetched because we all know about the skull experiments, the Philip experiments. These things have been done. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your trip to Germany. And the first thing I want to talk about, David, is the Zinsel hole.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of I loved it. So maybe you want to give us a little bit of background, like what is the Zinsel hole?
Sure. So for some, I'll try to keep this quick, but we made a major discovery last year where somebody was up at the fort, they had an encounter, and then something followed them home that night. And this person was very in tune. When I talked to them about what it was, they said, "Oh, it was an earth elemental spirit." And I didn't know a lot about elementals, but when I looked them up, Paracelsus was the first one to write about them, and he wrote about them in the Black Forest of Germany. And I hear that and I'm like, holy hell, Robert the Doll is from Germany and he's stuffed with wood wool. It's called Excelsior. And I look up where that would have been sourced and it was the Black Forest of Germany.
Mm.
So I started thinking, whoa, there's German magic inside of this doll. And as I started exploring German folklore, I came upon this creature called the kobold. And kobolds, they're mind spirits and they're also household spirits. And they've been appropriated by Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of the fantasy games that use a lot of this real history. And with the kobold, um, depending on the legend, okay, they're helpful, they're pranksters, and they're nice to you unless you cross them. If
Mm.
you disrespect them, they might kill you. Uh, they'll make your life a living hell. Now, the way they got their name is people working in the mines used to think that they talk about these creatures helping them, and then if they thought that they hit a bunch of silver or something valuable, and it turned out to be something bad, they blamed the kobolds, and that's how cobalt got its name.
Cool.
But these were also creatures so they weren't just mine or cave spirits, but they'd live in people's households and they'd live in the hearth or inside the fireplace. And again, helpful. You weren't supposed to see them. They had little red hats that they'd wear, right? And it kept them invisible as long as they had their hat on. If they took their hat off, they became visible, but you weren't supposed to see them. That was bad luck. So
Cloaking.
one of the things that we went to Germany looking for was kobolds. And the place that like you were saying, the Zinsel hole. Um, God, we drove to the middle of nowhere and we hiked down this trail and a guy came and met us and he took us to an underground cave with a river running through it where the kobolds were supposed to have originated. And with this German folklore, they say that there was a whole colony of kobolds and they were very helpful. But then a man tried to trick them and he got one to take off his hat and then he stomped it to death. And the other kobolds got very upset and they ended up leaving the Zinzel hole. But we went into that hole to search for kobolds.
And I'm going to play a couple of clips here that you have. I'm blown away and I'm amazed by nature spirits. What you just described is a Wampanoag spirit here in New England called the Pukwudgie. And it is the exact same thing. They were good, but then they turned against man. And the parallels are incredible.
Well,
Are incredible.
I'm reeling here because I have a fire elemental spirit, and what you described is so characteristic of her behavior. Like, she's really cool, she's really awesome, but like, you cross me, you cross her, and you're gonna have the worst day of your life. And like, we're good and we know how to manage her. I've seen it now, and it's frightening. And it just, you like, were describing her perfectly, and I'm sitting here like, huh. Yeah,
And
wow.
you'll find these in almost every culture. And for every culture to have that, you go back far enough and it works out the same with a lot of the stories from the Bible and things like that. But when you find these things that happen everywhere, then that happen to large groups of people who have never run into the other group of people, you start to think, well, there's something to this. And they call them fairy tales, but today we call them ghost stories. And enough of them kind of evolve where people start to say, oh, ghost story, and they assume it's not real. Like fairy tales, oh, they're not real. I've come to learn that they are very, very real.
I totally agree. And that's something that we've been diving into a lot. We've been going through like a lot of folklore from, different cultures and things like that. And the time period when these things were written, they have the exact same description of a type of, entity in all of these different cultures when they had absolutely no ability to contact or connect with each other. And the only difference is the name. So that's fascinating.
It is. All right, so let's take a look at the Zinzel hole. There's a couple of clips. They're about 30 seconds long apiece, and we'll bring George back in here to take us to break. So here's the first.
And what you're seeing here, this is inside the Zinzel hole.
Very narrow.
Yeah, it's not a place that you want to get stuck overnight.
Okay, and here we go.
I think one of the most interesting things about this, it really was the middle of nowhere. With the effort it took to get to this place, and we found a guide who came out and he gave us the helmets and the boots, and took us through there, and walked us back, and he told us the stories, and they very much believe in these kobolds. For them, it's not just folklore.
Well, I got no shot in there. Just leave me here. Save yourself.
Claustrophobia 101 right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart.
Yeah,
Right.
and it didn't show up in those videos, but there was a river or a stream running right through there. So we were in about 6 inches of water, and it was running fast through there. And
I thought I could kind of hear it.
And there's the theories about water energizing spirits and things like that. But it was a very interesting place. And you know what the coolest thing was? We'd gone to one other place before that was more of a tourist attraction that took you to an underground mine. But they shared some of the history and things like that. And then that night, my wife is great at finding restaurants and hotels and everything, and just finding good places to eat and drink. She picked a place called, I think it was called like Zerho. And we wander the streets and we find this place. And we go in, and it was like, I think it was a 1,200-year-old medieval tavern.
Oh,
And we go inside, and we had to wait for a table, and we're like, yeah, no problem. And we had a couple of beers, and then they sat us. And understand, we had been looking for these kobolds all day long, and these kobolds are hearth spirits. They seated us inside a hearth. We were seated inside a giant fireplace on the day that we had been looking for these kobolds.
that's amazing.
And in my life, I've never been seated inside of a fireplace. So for it to happen on this day, and Zerhole, or whatever it was called, it means from hell.
You got to wonder whether or not, again, the spirits are not creating these scenarios, or the universe is not creating these scenarios for that to happen at that particular time.
Yeah,
For you to have that experience is just mind-boggling.
yeah. I mean,
Sometimes it's just too meant to be, especially where non-human spirits are
Yeah.
involved.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's Vegas odds for that to happen, David.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible. Um, and it made me realize, I know it's not a coincidence. I know it's part of my journey, but it is the kind of thing that makes you think, whoa, are we living in a simulation? Is somebody controlling this? So,
All right. So after that experience, you moved on from there. Tell me a little bit about the Steiff Museum.
yeah. So there's a Steiff factory where Robert the Doll was made. And that factory was actually constructed in 1903. And then they have a Steiff Museum, which they've added to the factory. And the factory's grown through the years. And so you go through the museum, and this museum is incredible. They've got these oversized Steiffs. Steiff invented the teddy bear, which is why they're a famous brand. And nobody knew that Robert was a Steiff, because their symbol is they put a button in the ear, and Robert's ears have been torn off. But yeah, look right there. You can see Robert's twin, and where you see it, and Robert was a clown when he was first created. So going to the museum and seeing this, that sign, it talks about their creations from 1903 to 1904, and that's almost identical to what Robert looked like when he was first created. The difference is, you see the little blue and yellow Steiff to the left, the Harlequin clown
Yeah.
there. So Robert looked more like that, but he was the size of this large one, and his was, I believe it was purple and yellow, pink and yellow. But that's what Robert looked like, and being able to confirm his date was pretty incredible. But the highlight for me, when we were there, the director of Steiff America, or Steiff USA, was in Germany, and he met us, and he took us into the factory. And believe me,
Your luck, man.
they are top
Great.
secret there. They don't allow people into the factory. And he took us in. My friend Caitlin helped arrange it. She's with Steiff USA as well, and uh, and he took us into. I got to stand in the room where Robert the Doll was made, and it's funny. These buildings, they call them the Virgin Aquarium in Germany. Well, in German they call it, their version of that. It's like the Fräulein's Aquarium, because all the pretty girls in Germany used to work there, and it's got the big glass windows. It was actually incredible architecture for its time. But knowing that same building's there, and seeing the people inside of there crafting the dolls today, the place is absolutely magical. You can feel it when you're in there. The love that they put into every creation, the people that are there are so into it. It's, you know, I always tell people that, yeah, you can look at pictures of Alaska, but you don't know what it's like until you're there. And it's the same thing with the Steiff factory.
I got to ask this before I let Taylor at you, but because of the time frame of this building being open and then being utilized for what it was made to be utilized for, it's also a time of witches still? Is there any possibility, again, that there could have been one or more of these women working there that could have put some sort of energy onto these dolls, whether it was conscious or subconscious? That,
Absolutely. I,
yeah,
I, I do think that that was happening. I think the people who were doing it loved what they were doing so much that they infused their own energy. But I think the
okay.
materials they were using, this wood wool that they're stuffed with, coming from the Black Forest, I believe that there was that elemental magic infused. And something that makes me believe this even more, Robert's not the only Stife doll who had a life of his own. There was a woman. She lived in the Bahamas. I think I'm going to have to look her up during the break. But she was like the queen of Bahama Cay, or one of the cays there, and she had her little guy who she treated as a human. She treated much like Gene Otto treated Robert the doll, and together they ruled this private island in the Bahamas. And the similarities are too much to be a coincidence. And my guess is that a lot of these Stife dolls are infused with that magic from the Black Forest.
Taylor, control yourself.
I can't. Like now I have so many different questions than I had before.
I want to give you that time here also. We've got one more video that you also had given us, and that is with regards to grandmasters. Do you want to save that for after the break?
Yeah, we can do that after the break. That's actually an interesting story about how the doll Abby behind me came to be.
Okay. Over to you, Taylor. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this elemental thing starts to make him make a lot more sense to me, just like his behavior. One thing about his behavior in particular that I've always wondered about is, a lot of people that go and visit the museum, they claim they have all of these horrible things happen after their visit if they don't ask him permission for X, Y, and Z. My question for you is like, as his caretaker, do you believe that that's actually Robert doing something, or is that like psychological effects of the people visiting being fearful of their behavior
I
after the
think
fact?
I think it's both, and that's a
Okay.
great question. So what I believe happens? There is the little girl spirit inside of Robert the doll, and I saw somebody mention in the comments earlier that they thought the angry nanny was a legend. Um, the legend part is that there was an angry nanny who made Robert the doll, and we found out he was a Stife. But in my research, I was able to find out that the Ottos had a nanny named Emmeline Abbott, and looking at census records, I discovered that she lost a child sometime between 1900 and 1910, which is the time that Robert the Doll arrived. So what we think happened is the child died. The child was probably attracted to that magic in Robert the Doll because Gene Otto's father was a doctor. So the child, would have been brought to the Otto home when it was sick or ill or dying or whatever happened to it. So we think this child entered the doll, and then when people come to the museum and see the doll, when they're disrespectful, when they flip the doll off or stick out their tongue and do things like that, uh, it hurts the child's feelings. And there are protectors. So one of the psychics from Discovery Channel, she was down, and Cindy Kaza, she said that she picked up that there was this portal inside of Robert, meaning multiple entities. And to me, I always knew there were multiples, but the portal made sense because imagine this: you disrespect the little girl spirit, one of those spirits comes out and latches onto you, and it follows you home and takes over your thoughts and makes your life hell, causes the issues. And then somebody else can come in 5 minutes later and disrespect the little girl. There's another spirit there. And that explains why there can be dozens of people or hundreds of people at the same time who are feeling a possession from Robert. So So I think that's what's going on. It's like the child, the elemental, and the protectors. And there's so much energy going on there. But then I think there's a lot of people who go up there as well, and bad things happen. And it's easy to say, "Well, I visited the haunted doll. That must be why my mom died." Um,
Mm.
or things like that. And I'm not discounting anybody who places, you know, again, paranormal is very personal. So I think people's beliefs are important, and I think the universe delivers things, however it does, to take them on their personal journey. But another thing I'll mention though, you said about asking permission.
Hmm.
That's the legend that irritates me the most. It's a man-made legend and it's stupid. you know,
That's what I've always wondered, and I'm so glad you said that. And that was one of my questions: is like, what are the biggest misconceptions that you see that like drive you crazy about it?
yeah,
Because it's like every haunted doll owner, it's like people come up with these things about mine all the time, and I'm like, that is so far from the truth. Like people are apologizing to mine all the time,
yeah.
this, that, and another thing. And so I've always wondered, in your experience with him, what's a misconception, and what have you actually seen happen?
Yeah, and I can tell you why that one happens because, he messed with cameras back before everybody had cameras on their phone, back when they were battery operated. And so batteries would drain, cameras would go bad. And it happened enough that somewhere along the way, somebody said, "Oh, be careful. You mess with cameras. Oh, you better ask permission." And then it kind of caught on. But the thing that irritates me,
Unbelievable.
now people will go up there and they don't ask permission. They say, "Well, I didn't ask permission and nothing happened." And it's like, well, of course not. You were respectful. And what do they expect when you say, "Hey, Robert, can I take your picture?" Are they expecting him to stand up and say,
Like,
"Yes, please let me pose"? Because that's not the way it works. Again,
right.
the doll is an artifact. There are the spirits nearby. And when they do go into Robert, I've seen his expression change. I've seen a gleam
Yeah.
come into his eye. I've felt the energy in the room change. People have seen him move. He's thrown his lion, but he's not going to do a jig for everybody who asks him if they can take a photo. So,
I don't know what they expect.
and
We're gonna pick up the phone. Let me tell you, yeah, it's fine. Like what?
yeah, and the museum had it on their wall for years. Remember, you have to ask Robert for permission. And I had asked them to take it down, but the museum isn't into the paranormal. They collaborate with me for the paranormal because
Got it.
I was working with Robert before he was on display. The museum didn't want anything to do with ghosts, and I found out about Robert, and he was in a back room at the fort. And then when I started telling people on my ghost tour about him, I said, "Oh, go to the museum, call them, ask them to bring him out." And enough people started calling them that they brought Robert out into a small case. And then as he got more popular and more things happened, he got a bigger case. And now he's their star exhibit. He makes them an awful lot of money. But their primary objective is to care for him as an artifact.
Right.
And I'm very grateful that they collaborate with me to deliver the paranormal and to share my research. So
Yeah. That's one thing I was going to ask you as well is like, as his caretaker, right? Like, what measures do you take given that, the museum treats him like an artifact, which he is in their lens, right?
yeah.
What measures do you try to take to like, protect and preserve him? Because I think that that would always be the hardest thing for me as a caretaker is like somebody else doing as they wished, with one of my spirits that I know really well. How do you deal with that?
I strictly care for the spirits in the doll. The artifact is cared for by their team, and
Got it.
they've got a good team. They have the Key West Lighthouse. They have the Custom House. They've got very rare Ernest Hemingway artifacts. They've got things from. I mean, they've got an
Amazing.
incredible, very valuable collection that they take very seriously. And that's the other important thing. People will ask, well, why not do this with Robert? Why not do that with Robert? They know the importance of Robert, but they have such an incredible collection that they're caring for. So Robert's not their only thing.
Right.
So like
Right.
they have him in a very expensive case, and they've got the alarm systems in place, and they have all of that going. And the building is actually owned by the county, and it's an old Civil War fort. So
It's
old
really
Civil
cool.
War forts, and I'll tell you, in 1996, when I started telling Robert's story, that roof was leaking, the windows were open all the time. It was an open air fort. It was dirty and dusty. And now, it has a new roof. It's about to get new hurricane-proof walls throughout. It's gone through a lot of upgrades, and they're starting to install air conditioning throughout. So it's really becoming a better habitat for Robert,
That's awesome.
which is so important because
Right.
he's what, his birthday was yesterday.
Oh, you celebrate his birthday?
Yeah,
I love that.
his birthday is celebrated on Gene Otto's birthday, which is October 25th. But yeah, so he had his birthday. He's, what is it, 100 and I'm not going to do the math, but figuring from 1904. So
Well, happy birthday to Robert.
yeah, yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about as well is, do you like, with the idea of the portal object, and I've come across a portal object once, and it makes a lot of sense what you're describing. Like, how many different, I guess, experiences do you feel like you've encountered with, Robert? Like, how many spirits do you feel like you've run into in your work with him?
Taylor, hold on to that question. Don't lose it. Reframe it if you want to after the
Okay.
break. And of course, that gives you time also, David, to concoct the answer for that. I'm sure there's a lot of layers with regards to that. But we have to go to break. We're at the top of the hour. That'll give you guys a chance to replenish your beverages. And when we come back on the other side, more to tackle with both of our very special guests tonight, David Sloan and Paranormal Teej. We'll be back just on the other side. You're watching Dead Air Live on a Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. Stay with us.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Now showing on Dead Air Full Spectrum YouTube channel.
New episodes of Extremely Strange coming soon.
Every alternate Thursday on our channel.
Every Thursday. Opposite. Well, that was weird.
In cemeteries across the world, some headstones hold more than just names and dates. They preserve cherished family recipes, etched in stone as a lasting tribute. These recipes are more than instructions for a dish. They are connections to loved ones, memories of shared meals, and a way to keep traditions alive. In this series, we'll be honoring these unique culinary legacies by bringing these recipes to life. With respect and gratitude, we'll cook the dishes exactly as they were meant to be enjoyed.
New episodes of Last Bite coming soon.
to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink, cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars. Crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar. This world is so bizarre, empty out the reservoir. Yeah, I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots, all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me? I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost.
Yeah, and again, every single, oh, here he comes to curse us now. Every single Monday night live town hall with our Patreon members. I mean, we've got one hell of a list of incredible people. Teej has joined us before. We already invited David for a future Monday to come join us on our Patreon. Sharon Coral from Rolling Hills Asylum is a longtime member. So you make sure you guys get a chance to check it out. That's, again, patreon.com/Dead Air Paranormal. Only $3, guys. You can't beat that. The last bite, Ken, I just showed that recently. I gave her the link to one of the episodes. I think it was episode 3. To my VA dietitian. It was just absolutely, I just could not get her to stop talking about how cool of a concept that it was, taking
Yeah.
the headstone recipes and making them. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and
There are more on the way.
yes,
We promise there are more on the way. It's the busy season right now. Obviously, there's a lot of editing done. Cody, Satori, myself. We're looking forward to more of them. Your dietitian must love it because there's an awful lot of brownies and fudge and
yeah,
cookies.
all the bad stuff. And I know you are, as your self-professed chili snob, but I just attempted one of my first ones today, which was a walnut chili mac, and it was absolutely delicious. Northern white beans included with it, and diced tomato. It came out really good. So it's interesting. But I digress. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
so you guys definitely make sure you check out our Patreon channel. Certainly important. I'll save my questions for the latter part of the show. I know that Taylor, you still had another question you had asked David. He didn't get a chance to respond. Do you want to repeat that question?
Oh yeah, I was just wondering about like the multiple spirits aspect of Robert, being, the whole portal situation. Like, how many spirits do you feel like you have personally interacted with when working with him?
It's interesting because I've been told that there's an unlimited supply. What I've found is there's 2 main ones. Okay, so first we have the child spirit, which I call Abby. We don't know her name, but she was an abbot, so I call her Abby. I think sometimes Gene Otto's spirit's around there. We've got the elemental spirit or the Cabald. And then there are 2 primary ones that I've encountered, and they're about 8 feet tall. They're huge dark shadows, and they seem to be the primary caretakers. They surround the doll in its case. We'll see them when we're doing tours in there, when we're talking about things in there. You'll sometimes see them move and come around. And then after that, I really think it's an unlimited supply, but I haven't really encountered those ones myself. It's impossible for me to differentiate which ones are which. Um, I get attachments more often than I should because I'm very careless in dealing with spirits. But I had a Santería ritual to a degree performed just, I guess, in mid-July to remove an attachment that I had. And we were in there in the fort, and I got a chance to ask questions. They called down their spirits. They removed what was attached to me. And when I got to ask questions, I said, "Hey, is everything good with me and the spirits with Robert?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, they love you." And I said, "How many are there?" And she said, "Hundreds." And about a week after that, when I was meditating, I I asked the question, I said, how many of you are there? And it said 144, look it up. And I looked it up, and 144 is a pretty incredible number. And I won't bore everybody with the details, but look up 144. So that's the number that I think are there for me. And I don't know if they're all with Robert or part of them are with me, but some of that, the more time you spend together, I think they deliver what people need.
Yeah. I
That's
wanted
fascinating.
to I wanted to ask before we go on to the next clip, what is it about dolls in particular, haunted objects in general, but dolls in particular that captivate people so much? Is it the fear, the mystery? Is it psychological? I mean, because dolls essentially represent us. They're made to look like us. They're made to resemble people from different eras, different generations, and this goes down. So I think that's probably what captivates people the most because they're holding up a mirror to themselves. But in your experience, because you have people come to the museum, and Teej, you have family and friends come to your house. What do you think it is? Is it more than just their effigies of us, or is it media? Is it literature? Is it the stories? What is it that just has a hold on us with the phenomena of haunted dolls?
With my haunted dolls, I've honestly been so blown away by the response to them. I never like my account was a personal account. I had no intention of sharing paranormal anything. I just had haunted dolls and was like, I made videos about books and my life and me with my friends. And every once in a while, I posted a haunted doll video and people just fell in love with them. And what I have found is a lot of times people tend to be really drawn to spirits who have stories that are similar to their own, or they relate to in some way, and people get really attached to them for that, I think. So I think, less about the vessel itself and more about the personality of the spirits. People just really, they see something in them, and that's been really cool, is just kind of, you know people have come to me and say like, hey, I saw Jessica's story and her story meant a lot to me because she reminds me of myself when I was a teenager. So we see a lot of that, I think.
Yeah. And what do you think? What do you think is the deep attraction, David? How do you feel about that? Having a museum where people come through, and like you say, it's not all about Robert, but let's face it, Robert is the star of the show there.
I think anybody involved in the paranormal, we're all on that quest to find out what happens after we die. And when you think about that, you know, a lot of those thoughts go to, is there a soul inside of us? Is our body just a vessel? Are we a meat puppet that's just holding the soul? And then, so
Generally, yes.
I think when we look at a doll, we can say, okay, that's just another puppet. Is it possible for my soul to inhabit that? So I think it captures that. And then there are things like the uncanny valley, where the more human something looks, there's a certain degree to where we like it, but then when it gets a little too human, we're like, oh my god, that freaks me out.
You get a little repulsed sometimes when the hair looks just a little bit too human and the
Yeah.
eyes look just a little bit too human and how they're dressed looks just a little bit too human.
Yeah, so there's that uncanny valley where, which it's a very real thing, but I, we're all on this journey. We're all trying to figure things out, and we can talk about science, but science is like a little kindergartner, and as far as explaining the human experience. So we're really walking blind through this world, and we're trying to understand things. And I think everybody's on that same mission, and we approach it in different ways. And the paranormal is one of those ways for us to explore things.
Hmm. Well, I mean, especially it's cyclical, right? Because when you go into times of turmoil and social upheaval, and it's very cyclical. It sometimes has always happened after wars where
Yep.
there's been a dramatic loss of life that people tend to turn more to the spiritual and look for something that's bigger than we are.
Mhm.
And that is true in just about every conflict we've ever had. World War One, World War Two, the Korean conflict, Vietnam, the Age of Aquarius, all the rest of that, in the 90s. I mean, look it up sometimes. It's fascinating how those seem to be the times where people really gravitate towards something. I want to go into the next clip, David, and you guys, you're both celebrities. You were grand marshals here. So I'd like to play that if you want to set it up for us. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, so Robert's a very valuable artifact. Fantasy Fest is the Mardi Gras of Key West. And
Mhm.
so Robert and I were the grand marshals in the big parade. And of course, the real Robert is too valuable to put out in a casket on a forklift and drive down Duval Street with 80,000 people watching. So we created this doll, which I call Abby. And I took it to the museum and I invited the little girl spirit inside of Robert to come into this doll and to be a part of the parade with me. And when I did it, we were originally recording it for a little promo for Fantasy Fest, but when I did it, uh, the results surprised even me, and we opted not to show any of that video. So this is the only time that it's been shown anywhere.
Okay, excellent. So let's take a look at this.
Hold on. All right, Robert, you know that there's the big parade coming up and that you're too fragile as an artifact to join. So what I'm going to do at this moment is invite you to leave your case, to come with me. You can come right inside of here in the crystal. I made this guy for you. Looks very much like you did when you came over from Germany. And for the little girl spirit that's inside of you, the one that we call Abby. Abby, I have a little Bahamian girl as the shell of this one too, so you'll feel at home. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you feel like coming to the parade, if you feel like being with me, if you want to come into this stall, go ahead and come in, I'll get you.
Right about this time, the doll got heavier.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing. When you invite one spirit in, you're inviting them all. So there's more. Does this one look any different than it did?
So
that is special, ladies and gentlemen. That's a special appearance tonight by Robert the Doll.
That's
and
fascinating.
and with that, the doll actually got heavier, which is what surprised me. I didn't know if anything would actually transfer. And then there was a guy who was standing there, and I asked him if he wanted to hold her. He didn't know what was going on, but he held the doll and he started crying. He became very emotional, and it brought out a lot with him. So that was all very interesting. And then so we went through the parade together, and then I took her home because I figured she needed a break from the museum, from all these people coming in and doing the same thing. People walking by, taking a picture, talking about them, talking about her like she wasn't there. And um, and then when I brought her back to the museum, I had a call from a friend. The singer from Living Color was in town, and his wife was very much into Robert. And
I know those people, David,
yeah,
Joe,
Corey
Joe
and
and
Joe.
Corey. Yeah.
Yeah. So And I tell you, when they came up, I'm usually horrible around famous people. So I was expecting to be like, oh my God, Corey, I love you. Um, but Joe, they got off the golf cart and I was immediately drawn to her. And my spirit guide said, this is the most powerful person you've ever met. She is me. And then Joe told me that she was psychic, but still working on developing her skills. We went through the fort. She picked up on everything. I mean, she knew stuff nobody would know unless they had spent a lot of time researching the fort. And then we were back by the Yellow Fever Tunnel. And that's usually inhabited by soldiers or, mainly male spirits. And she walked halfway down this tunnel and she leaned down, got to floor level, and started talking to someone. And I looked, I said to Corey, I said, oh my God, she's talking to the little girl. And I said, I don't know what the little girl's doing back here. She's never back here. And then we looked, I forgot I had brought Abby back to the fort that night and I had her sitting right outside of the tunnel. So I think that it was very successful inviting the little girl into the doll. And so now I keep her with me. I don't say, hey, you have to be here. I don't know if she's here all the time. But it's one of those interesting experiments that has changed my beliefs with things. It's really shaped my thing. And Joe is the one who, after seeing the little girl, she called me the next day and told me about a visitor she had. And one experience with Robert that I rarely talked about, I'd been on a vacation following my great-great-great-grandfather's Civil War trail, and everything went wrong. I mean, not just bad luck, I was cursed. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I aborted the trip partway through. And when I made that call to turn in the rental car and get a flight home, I fell asleep, but it was a strange sleep. And I woke up clutching my heart. I was convinced I was having a heart attack. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. And as I did that, I turned over on my right-hand side. This creature slid out of me. And it sounds silly, but it looked like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It was transparent. The thing I remember is the scream. The scream that it made, it slid across the bed and is looking surprised, like, whoa, what's happening to me? And it disappeared. And after that, my bad luck stopped. Everything was fine. And I always thought maybe the little girl spirit was used to being with me at the fort and didn't know we were leaving. And so that maybe that was her. And because she's 120 years old, she was deformed. But when I talked with Joe, she described the creature she saw that night. And it was the exact same thing, the exact same sound. And I asked her, I said, oh, do you think it's the little girl? And she said, no, no, no. It's an earth elemental. And
About to say this like an elemental.
Yep. And that's what sparked the journey. That's what opened up the entire new chapter of Robert the Doll with the German folk magic. And the funny thing is, I was recently going back through all the early records of Robert. I'll go back and reread stuff. And all of the stories before I was even involved didn't call him a haunted doll or a possessed doll. They called him the enchanted doll. So the answer was always right there for us.
It's funny that it's the irony of this. I've spoken to Joe on a couple of occasions, email and phone, and she's expressed an interest in coming along with our group.
Oh, yeah. She's magical.
It's like, I'll travel. I'll come from New York, So it's something that we have to revisit. I know she lost her dad, so we just gave it a little bit of space. But I will be, at some point I'll be in touch with Joe and we get something appropriate. She'll be coming with us. So now that you've told me this, it's like I'm intrigued now.
She's magical, and she's very tuned in. Her powers are really incredible.
David, let me ask you this, because between both of you, I know that there's very much a symbiotic relationship with Robert, with Teej, with her dolls. What, if Robert could speak, and maybe you're already aware of this somehow, what do you think that he would have to say with all about all the notoriety and the fame and the attention and all the people that come to visit him?
He'd say it doesn't matter. That's all a human thing.
Yeah.
It's, the energy that it brings up there with people is one thing, and uh, that kind of helps the wheel turn, or kind of like makes that thrive. But I think the core spirits inside of Robert, it doesn't matter. I like to think that they're there for individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And when an individual comes up there, if it's meant to be, the spirits in Robert will take them by the hand and drag them into the forest and take them on a journey. And it becomes a classic fairy tale. You go into the forest, you're afraid, you face your fears, you deal with the all the bad things out there, and then when you overcome them, you come out the other side a new person. It's like the classic hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Robert has that ability to do that to people, not to everybody, but the people who are drawn to him. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like my journey actually started in kindergarten. I uncovered this Pennsylvania German connection between everybody who's cared for Robert the Doll's spirit and everybody who led me to Robert the Doll. And, Pennsylvania German, that's all really weird. And so Gene Otto's grandfather, the first to come from Germany, he went to Philadelphia, then Harrisburg, and he was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this certain type of magic that's it's a powwow magic, or brucari, I think is the pronunciation, and it's limited to this area where the Pennsylvania Dutch were, and it was practiced by doctors.
You're probably well aware of the Hotel Bethlehem and some of the stories there.
I'm not.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
settled by German immigrants who actually built the hotel. And it is arguably, look into it, the most haunted hotel in the country. And I know that the Stanley Hotel, and they're all going to come at me for saying that. But I did an episode of the show I did, and I decided I have to talk about this particular place. And when they came, and there was religious persecution involved in it as well, with the German immigrants who moved to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hence the name of the town, Bethlehem. You know,
Interesting.
and there was, it was a big steel town, but yeah, check that out because that falls along those lines. Teej, when you have friends over, do you get, um, is it a mixed reception, or do you just have like a velvet rope and you don't let those people in? Or, because you often talk about the various personalities
Yes.
of all these, I hate to call them objects, people, dolls, whatever's appropriate, but many varied personalities, fun loving, mischievous, the whole gamut of the human experience, which is why I subscribe to the idea where they're spirit adjacent, because there's no cookie cutter, one fits all. Each one of those spirits who may be accompanying or in visitation, they all have a different personality. And your collection, I know, is very much like that. Do they love the attention? Do some not like the attention? When people come in, do they kind of choose who they like or who they don't like, or who rubs them the wrong way? Um, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, so people coming over is a little bit of an experience in our house. I am very, very, very drawn to mischievous spirits. It's kind of one of my things is the mischief makers. And so when people come to my house, I take a lot of pride in this. I've had a lot of skeptics come to my house and they leave and they completely believe in the paranormal on their way out the door because everybody manages to have some kind of weird experience here because my haunted dolls go crazy. I have a couple in particular who are known to be troublemakers when people come over. Um, Dick, D Man, we call him. He, when people come over, he stomps in the hallway a lot, very, very loud. Many people have gone running down the stairs from hearing that. He makes this sound of, it sounds like dishes are breaking. Like it almost sounds like a cabinet gets opened and all the dishes get thrown on the ground, but nothing falls. You just hear this dish breaking sound. And all of these things that he doesn't do when we're home alone. But the second somebody comes in the door, the dishes breaking sound happens, the stomping happens. He's really into balloons. So his favorite thing is balloons. So we'll give him like balloons as offerings. I had my birthday party. He's pulling the balloons off the walls. I mean, I had like taped these things to the walls, like so
Chaos.
that when they come down. He's like, you can see the tape getting like peeled at. He's pulling the balloons off the walls, ripping the banners down. So they definitely troll people. A lot of people get touched when they come over, their face, their hair, just like touched and things of that nature. But
They get
we
boot.
are very open about what we do with guests and everybody, even people who aren't into the paranormal, they're just curious about it. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people have had cool experiences here, but definitely they love it. Like they love to see people. I am very protective over my spirits. I have a lot of spirits with a lot of trauma and issues. So before people come over, I always like teach them about, how to react if something happens, what to do, who they are, what a haunted object is. So people who come in are respectful to them. And so it's a positive experience on both sides, both for the people coming and for them. So
This is what I love about researching and studying this because I often tell people when they hear sounds, could be footsteps, could be a big crash, you check, nothing's out of place. Sounds like dishes are crashing. You check, nothing's out of place. And I always say, because we love to categorize this intelligent, residual, make
yeah.
it all nice and neat. And a lot of times, those sounds can be what we used to call time slips, where sort of two dimensions just sort of intersect for a quick second, and you're getting a noise from the past. Obviously, you heard something, and nothing's out of place. So you could be listening to something that took place there 200 years ago. But then when you say you believe this particular doll can affect that somehow, I'm fascinated by that. There's always
It's
a
interesting.
twist to these things, whether or not he's projecting something to you, like psychologically, telekinetically. I don't know. But
We caught it on video once because I always wondered that too. Are people hearing it in their head or is it actually like an auditory thing? And very, very
hmm,
recently, I caught it on video. And it was exactly what I heard in real life. And I've always thought that was interesting too, because sometimes there are sounds, I think it's both. Sometimes there are sounds that like one person in the group will hear and then nobody else will. They're like, oh, I hear singing, and everybody else, like, I don't hear anything. And so, like, that I think is a projection. But then there are other things that I'm able to catch on camera. And we're crazy about the cameras in here. Like, we got security cameras, and I'm always trying to catch as much evidence as humanly possible. But with him in particular, I've always thought it was interesting because it doesn't appear to be random, like an EVP sometimes
right.
is or anything like that. It's exclusively when visitors come, usually within the first 30 minutes that they get there. So it is timed very intentionally. So it's fascinating to me. He's an anomaly. He's a troublemaker. He's hilarious, but he loves a visitor, man, more than anything.
David, do you ever get with Robert any reports of that kind of external thing? Maybe
Yeah,
at the museum around him, and do you think like immediately everybody wants to rush to judgment? It's Robert. It's Robert. But you
I,
say there are other spirits there too. So
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. People talk about things happening there almost every day. We operate the tours at night. The museum's open during the day, where people can go in and just visit Robert.
Mhm.
Uh, and at night we do the paranormal experience where they get to hear the entire story, and we give them ghost tours and we give them the equipment so they can investigate. But we have crazy stuff happening, and me and the guides still we still we still are amazed by stuff that happens.
Mm.
I mean, the I was in there one night and somebody's like, "You're not going to believe it. Our K2 meter's going crazy." And I thought, well, maybe they're holding it near their phone or something like that. And so she's like, "Follow me, look, look, look." And I go into the room. Their K2 meter was sitting on the chair and it was spinning. So, I mean, it was lighting up too, but it was spinning fast, fast, fast. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Something really cool early on when I used to have ghost tours downtown in Key West. One night we're in front of this old theater, and it had been abandoned for 10 years, nobody inside of there, and it had been a church at one time where children were said to die in a fire. And somebody says, "What's that?" And we look down, and there's this, like, it was like a ball of cotton far back, but it was moving towards us and getting bigger. And out of a group of 30 people, half the people are like, "Oh my God, look, look, look." And then half the people are like, "Where? I don't see, I don't see." And so they're like asking the ones, and the ones who could see it are like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And this thing turned into a little girl, and she was probably 4 or 5 inches from my face, just on the other side of the door. And she didn't see any of us. And she looked out and she looked through everybody. And then she turned around and walked away and turned back into a little ball. And half the people saw her and half the people didn't. So I talked to people afterwards. And the ones who saw her all described the same thing: same shoes, same dress. The ones who didn't see her, nobody was lying. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, how come half of these people see her and half of them don't?
Right.
And my theory is that, it's our tuning. I think everything's frequencies. We've got waves, we've got frequencies. But it's like if we're sharing a car and, I'm listening to rock and roll, Teej is listening to heavy metal, you're listening to country. And, any of us gets into the car, we push a button, we tune in to what we like.
Right.
And that's all we hear.
Right.
And if I tried to tell you guys, "Oh, this car's playing nothing but rock and roll," you're like, "Yeah, sorry, not true." But so anywhere we are, it's like there's probably thousands of radio stations and possibilities
Sure.
blasting at us. And we're probably tuning in to just the one that's
Mhm.
very unique to us.
Mhm.
And some of those experiences we share with other people. That's the best way that I could explain 30 people being there and only half of them seeing the same entity.
Yeah, I have long. Everybody's got a theory, and I'll tell you my theory.
Yeah, please.
Um, I think a lot of it is projection and perception, because they are projecting an image, and you personally perceive whatever that image is, and because there's a lot of people that report seeing their grandfather who passed away in his 80s, but they see him when he was 19 in his army uniform
Mhm.
or something like that. So again, it's like seeing what I want you to see, and our ability to perceive that, take the receptors, and this is what our brain, I mean, we see everything upside down. Our brain is what turns it right side up. That's how eyesight works.
I think it's getting
So
lucky on both sides, right? Because like sometimes we'll be on the
yeah.
spirit box and we'll have come through and they'll say, "Did you see that?" And we're like, "See what?" "No, we didn't see anything." And they're like, "You're supposed to see that." And I'm like, "I didn't see anything." And they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, let me try again." And it's like they have to project it a certain way and we have to be able to get it. And there can be a breakdown on either side and then we don't get it.
Sure.
But sometimes I think they're just as clueless about how it works as we are. Like we've
Oh.
asked certain questions and they're like, "I have no idea how that
Mhm.
works. I don't know what happened." And we're like, "Oh, okay, well that checks out." So
That's a
I
really
think
good
there's a
point.
degree of luck involved too.
I have a little sign on my desk here that I always refer to. It says, "We don't know shit." And I
Yes.
I Always
Amen.
remember that when you start getting too full of yourself and start thinking that, I know a lot about this stuff. Just tonight, you guys are throwing stuff at me that makes me go, What I'd like to move into before we bring George back is we have this final video clip, and I know that David, you got to set this up because this is the release video. So you alluded to it before, and but this is something I think that bears you letting us know what it is that we're about to see.
This is something I've never showed anybody either, because it is very personal to me. Once I found out that there was this elemental spirit or Kabalden, Robert, in looking into the German folk magic, there's something called an Alruan, and it's basically a root doll. And with these dolls, the families would have them, and again, these household spirits were contained in the root doll, and they'd be passed down to the youngest son when the father died. And I started looking, and there was a legend about Robert the doll that said it was purchased by his grandfather on a boat from the Dry Tortugas by a guy who sold those kind of things. Now, when he was there, it was during the Civil War, and the Pennsylvania 47th Volunteers were in charge of Key West. That's when the first David L. Sloan was in Key West at the Dry Tortugas. So I suspect that one of these root dolls was purchased. During the time of war, you're looking for hope. It's a piece of home. And then when Joseph Otto died, his youngest son would have been Thomas Otto, the doctor who was Jean's father. When Thomas Otto died, his youngest son would have been Jean Otto. When Jean Otto died, his only child would have been Robert the doll. And I believe that this elemental spirit or this root doll had been trapped inside the doll for a long time. So we did a seance, and Brad Blair and Tim Ellis from Michigan Paracon and Dustin Pari were all there, and my friend Beth Rooney, who's a great psychic, and we did a seance, and I created a root doll in the same fashion that they would have done it in Germany, and I invited the elemental spirit into the doll. Mm-hmm. And when I did it, I felt something come out and go into the box, and it came straight through the box and went into me, and I freaked out, and it was awful. Dustin Pari removed it immediately. I don't know if something else remained in that box. I feel like something did. And I took it to Germany and released it into the Black Forest.
Okay.
So this is the video. I released it on May 8th at midnight in the Black Forest.
Okay. No one's ever seen this before, folks. So we thank you, David, for sharing this with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is that.
Now that's the doll, and that explains the story to whoever finds it. If anybody ever finds it, mm-hmm. It explains what I believe is in there. And the Black Forest, I mean, it's called black because it's so dark.
Right.
It was pitch dark out there. This was the day that the new Pope was named. That was the day Robert became Leo. Oh, and somebody asked the name of Robert's lion. It's Leo the lion. So.
Right.
I'm in the Black Forest in Germany, and I'm here to release what I believe is one of the main spirits inside of Robert the doll. I'm returning it to the Black Forest where it originated so it can continue its course. If you find this box,
I'm reading right there.
Perhaps the Kobold has chosen you for its next journey. Please be respectful. But your spirit is free. Please.
And what I'm doing there, everywhere we went in Germany researching these ancient spirits, I collected elements. And look at that picture right there.
Right.
I'll get to that in a second, but um, so my kindergarten teacher was the first one to tell me about ghosts. She's the one who got me into it, and she was the first Pennsylvania German connection in that long line. So I called her about a month before our Germany trip, and I asked her. I said, "Why?" I said, "You're the key to this. Why did you start telling me about ghosts when I was in kindergarten?" And she told me a story about a house she and her husband moved into, and she would have been. I mean, she was pretty much a kid at the time, but um, she woke up one night to the squirrels going crazy, and she saw this symbol on the wall. It was illuminated, and it was a circle with a line going down through it, kind of like a lollipop. And there were no street lights, and she thought it's a car and tried to block the light, but there was nothing outside. And she thought, oh no, the wall's on fire. And she put her hand up against it, but it was cool to the touch. And she woke her husband and said, look at this. And he said, I see that. I want nothing to do with it. And he went back to bed. She said it eventually faded away, and the squirrels got quiet, if they were squirrels. And then all the paranormal activity started, and she started telling us about it. Now, I looked up that symbol, and the first thing that came up in my search was the Irminsul, which was the tree that the pagans worshipped. And Charlemagne cut it down and built a church on top of it to usher in Christianity and the Holy Roman Empire. The first ruler of the Holy Roman Empire was Otto the Great. And in Jean Otto's family history, they talk about how they are direct descendants of Otto the Great.
Wow.
And so, but that symbol, when I released the spirit and buried that box, I thought it'd be like in the movies and crazy stuff would happen, and nothing happened. But then I walked out of the Black Forest, and I had a headlamp and a flashlight. I walked for about 10 minutes and realized that I could see without my headlamp or flashlight on. And I was seeing in the dark. I passed where I should cut down, and then there was this beautiful field. The moon was shining down on it. And I'm like, oh, I got to look at this. And I laid down. And as I laid down, this streak cut across the sky. And it was an airplane, but it was leaving a trail behind it. And it was like gibbous moon, almost full. And it made that same symbol that my kindergarten teacher had seen.
That's amazing.
And I looked at that, and I'm like, I don't know what it means, but I'm on the right track, whatever it is.
It certainly sounds like it. Well, I'm going to let George in on this now. David, thank you so much for this. The symbolism, what it means to you, obviously, is something very personal, and we appreciate you sharing that. But I'll be back to say goodbye.
Just one observation I've actually been fixated more than anything else is how patriarchal that you are, even with this doll. I mean, it was sitting behind you by itself. You put it into your lap. It's been with you since then.
Yeah.
And again, it shows the love and the care and the attention and the wherewithal of the energies surrounding that doll. That's just amazing to me. I think again, Teej, you must be over the moon with tonight.
I am. It gives me like a restored faith in humanity in a way, because like seeing Annabelle and just how she was treated like really broke my heart, and like you can tell just in the way that like just in the way you even talk about him and the stories, and you can tell that you care. And in that video you showed, you're telling like, you're saying if you want to if you want to leave the museum, if you want to do this, and it's very clear that there is a deep respect and care there as a caregiver. And that means the world to me, that like, despite how famous and popular he is, there's somebody that's always looking out for him. And I think that's awesome. And that's something that I see missed a lot within haunted doll collecting, when things turn into that paranormal entertainment. So made me very happy. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions in there I want to get to, and then I'll leave the remaining time, if there is any, for Teej to ask you whatever else she wants. I realistically, I've got David's number. I could call him anytime I want, but just so you understand the importance behind privacy and respect, how many times have I ever called you, David?
I think 0.
Yeah. I've got numbers in here for so many different people that are, uh, pinnacles of the society of the paranormal that I don't call them. I don't, because they've got enough people who do, and I just don't want to go down that road and start to be somebody who's either harassing or annoying. So, if I reach out to him whatsoever, I'll give him a text and say, hey, you thinking about coming by the show or what's going on? That's all. And boy, do I miss Fantasy Fest. I used to live in Key West, and that place is crazy. I don't know whether or not it's been tapered down, but it was a lot of fun back in
Better
the
than ever. It's
late 80s.
insane. It just wrapped up yesterday.
Let's hit these questions real quick. This is from Mary Beth in chat. Wanted to know, does Robert enjoy learning this about his heritage?
I don't know, but my guess is yes. It feels right when I do it. But who knows? I might be annoying the hell out of the spirits.
Next question here. This is from Medium Sherry Jewel. Does Robert talk to you and give you information?
Hey, Sherry, that's an awesome question. Yes and no. So I don't feel like it's an actual conversation, but I feel like we have an understanding. And when we're around each other, I can sense things, and it's almost like a conversation in your head where you just automatically know something. And I'll project my feelings to Robert as well. So it's almost like we're both on the same wavelength, experiencing the same thoughts, and we can exchange them there. And that probably makes sense to you. I think it does.
All these questions, by the way, Teej, are all for of course David and about Robert the Doll, and that's mostly because everybody that's in the chat know you because they're subscribers to your channel.
Sherry's my mom, actually.
I want to ask.
Sherry's
I want to ask.
so
Teej, I want to ask Teej a question.
go.
Do you ever have to separate your dolls? Do they have conflicting personalities? And also, and then the follow up to that is, do you think that some spirits take on different personalities to uh, interact with your different dolls, where they'll be like, okay, I'm going to be this one because I want more attention?
That is a great question. So I have one spirit. Well, I only have one spirit who I have to be careful really where I place him, and that is Dick, who we were talking about earlier. He's a 17-year-old boy. He was 17 when we passed, and he's still at 17. He gets very interested in some of the female spirits, and we were having issues where I'd come in and his creepy little hand would be sitting on somebody else's leg or something like that. And then he was getting like kind of pushed around, banging his head on the wall. So we had to isolate him to he's down here now. There's like a little boys bench, and he has to be away from the women. So we do separate him from the ladies, and he's too fond of them, and that creates problems because they're not fond of him back. I feel like in terms of just like attention seeking, they don't really like take on. Every once in a while we'll get on the spirit box a spirit pretending to be another spirit, but then it's like we can tell that it's off, and we're like, this is not so and so, and then they'll be like, you're right, and then they'll tell us who it is.
Okay.
So every once in a while we get that. It's more of like a game that they play with us of like, ooh, let's see if they can figure out who I actually am, or they won't tell us their name and we have to start guessing. So sometimes we get that. We have one named Sunny who impersonates everybody, but it's like a one-liner. She'll be like, "Oh, I'm Hoshiko. I like scary movies. Oh, I'm so and so," and she just goes through all these little scripts she has, and then we're like, "No, you're Sunny," and she's like, "Who's Sunny?" And we're like, "Oh my god." So we have some of that. So yeah, that's what I get for loving trickster spirits, I guess.
Right.
That's
Right.
the life I live. So
You guys are weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like my buddies. I love them. I love them so much. They're awesome.
I wish I have one haunted doll from Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum that I wish had that kind of active aspect about it, and maybe it does, and I'm just again not getting the frequency that I need for it. All right, let's get to these final questions here. Caradelia. Caradelia wants to know how many owners has Robert had? I know of at least 3.
Yeah. So made by the Stife Company, probably by Marguerite Stife or her brother. I don't know if they count as a caretaker, but I think they cared for him and put things in him. So that would be number one. Gene Otto from 1904 up until his death in 1974. And then a few years after that, when the house sold, Myrtle Reuter. And Myrtle Reuter, another person from Pennsylvania with German ancestry, she had Robert from the time shortly after Gene's death up until she donated him to the Fort East Martello Museum in 1994, August 18th, I think. And then the artifact has been in the care of the museum since then. I came to Key West in 1996 and started investigating the spirits shortly after. It was several years before I really realized that I was a caretaker for the spirits. But now I'm the primary caretaker for the spirits. So about 4. But I think, I mean, there's so many spirits in Robert. I think there's so many other people who are very close and who feel that connection. So that number could actually be in the dozens or hundreds.
How does a Robert the Doll tour actually work, especially during this month particularly? I'm sure it's a hot commodity in Key West. How do you shuffle everyone through? Is it groups they can skip, they got 10 minutes in, then they're out, or is it just
No. So people can visit Robert the Doll during the day at the museum, and they go in, they can read the sign on the wall, and they can see Robert. But that's all Art and Historical Society, and it's great. But then for people who want more of the paranormal aspect, we do one tour a night, and it's usually at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And for 30 minutes, we take people through the fort and we turn off all the lights. It's dark, it's creepy. We take them to parts of the fort they don't get to visit during the day, like the Yellow Fever Tunnel where Sam and Colby had their issues. And we give that 30-minute ghost tour, and then we do a 30-minute sit down lockdown inside of Robert's room. So we show people a short film that shows all the people involved and tells the whole story. And then the guide will use some different equipment, spirit boxes and other things, and talk about theories about what's haunting Robert. And then, so that's 1 hour. And then people can book the VIP, where they get an entire hour after the tour. The fort's completely dark. We give them a flashlight and access to Ouija boards and spirit boxes and, every paranormal tool you could think of. And we say, have fun. And people can conduct their own investigation with Robert or the Yellow Fever Hospital. So that's what I always recommend, doing the VIP. So you get to hear the stories and then doing a little investigation.
Yeah,
last
Priscilla, it's on my
question?
list.
I want to. I don't know how you would do this, David. Obviously, you are connected. Your energy is working with Robert Dahl and doing all of this background and investigating. If you were to look into Teej's room and she was going to come to Key West, do you see a doll there that she should bring along to interact with Robert?
Yes. Yeah.
Don't say the bear. Please don't say the bear.
No. There's it's a shorter one with a little bit of purple on it. All the way off on
This
the
one?
yeah, just one over there. Yeah.
Isabel.
Oh, we've talked about Isabel.
Tell me about Isabel.
Oh, she's a hoot. She's a teenager. She is kind of like she's got like this tomboy energy about her. This is not her usual outfit. She wanted to be a ninja for Halloween. It was very important. She's a troublemaker though. So she is kind of new. She's been here for a couple months. Her thing is throwing things. She loves to throw things. She's knocked over huge speakers, giant vases, picture frames. She just chucks stuff for sport, and she thinks it's so funny, and it is. Something very unique about her. Actually, I was thinking about her when you were talking about offering the other vessel and all of that, because Isabel is a vessel hopper, so she will never stick to a vessel for very long. She will, and now my camera is
They're
blurry.
going out of
Please,
focus again because you're speaking
please
about them.
stop.
I love it. I love it.
It happens every time. But she will decide one day, I don't want this vessel anymore, and she will crash it, break it, and then make you buy like 10 new ones for her to choose from. So
Great.
she's a little, yeah, she's picky. She's fun.
When you come to Key West, we have a lot. I mean, I've the entire Yellow Fever Tunnel. I display all of my cursed, possessed, interesting objects, and they're all available for people to investigate. But I have a lot of dolls, so you should bring her and see if she wants to move to a different vessel, and we can do some experiments with that.
Ooh.
That would be so interesting because she apparently, when I got her, she's due for a new vessel soon. She won't stick with one for longer than a year. So she's going to need a new one soon. So we could definitely experiment with that.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of days before she breaks it. So
I think that would be really cool to try to do a vessel exchange where we'll try to get one of the spirits of the fort to move into that one and try to get her to move into one of the other ones, and then and see how that works.
That would be so interesting. All right, now you have my head spinning. So as if it wasn't spinning already,
Yeah. Right after the show, she's going to be on Priceline right now looking for bookings.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too that you picked her out because like that, she's the only one I have that's like that. And that's like right in line with kind of what you've been experimenting with.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that out of $75, you picked the one that has that characteristic.
Yeah, nothing's a coincidence.
No.
Mr. DaCosta, if you'd like to join us back on screen as we're going to wrap this up. Also, a quick reminder.
I was listening to the Paranormal Marketplace here.
Yeah.
It's also up.
There's a swap meet. I would like to touch on a couple of things, if I could, real quick before we get out of here and say goodbye. Next week, we are going to be welcoming the Boo couple. They are from the Chicago area, Lorelei Blondell and Jeff Booty. They are a couple, and they're going to talk about everything from paranormal investigation to true crime. And if you know anything about the Chicago area, there's an awful lot of that there. So they are going to be coming on next week. Also wanted to say Extremely Strange will now be on every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. I thought that was important to get that in there. And finally, what I would like to do is, first of all, thank everybody. But if you haven't, a lot of you know all about this, and we want to promote this because right now I think they are about at $175,000 right now. It's been amazing. So if you have contributed, we thank you. And if you haven't, please consider it, because this is all about the preservation of an iconic location here. So there's where you go.
And tomorrow night for Town Hall, Ken will tell you probably a few anecdotes about the visit last night at the Alley Theater with the godfather of the paranormal, John Zaffis, and the paranormal couple, Cody and Satori, and the Rise Up team all in attendance. So make sure you guys don't miss it. All of our Patreon members. Again, always the chance to become a Patreon member. Just go to patreon.com/Dead Air Paranormal. You'll be able to check on everything. We cannot thank the two of you enough. Quite an entertaining show, quite a lot of questions and remarks within the chat about this. I think that we will probably have to set something up in 2026 with the both of you after the both of you meet each other and see what results we get from that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for our show tonight. David, Teej, don't hang up right away. We won't keep you long after, but stick around with us. Anything else that you needed to announce, David, before we go?
No, it's been such a pleasure tonight. I mean, all of you are great. So thank you for having me.
And Keen, throw out all of your information about your websites where people can go and check you out.
Yeah, if people go to hauntedkeywest.com, that'll give them everything haunted in Key West, hotels, bars. It'll have links to my ghost tours and things like that. And then on social media, I'm at David L. Sloan.
And Taylor?
I am Paranormal Teej on TikTok and YouTube, and we also have a Discord server, which is on my link tree that is in both of my bios, so you can find me there.
Whatever that means, because we're old and we don't know what the heck that stuff is.
Link in bio. Press it if you want to find Discord. That's it.
For everybody else, we'll see you next week in November already. Oh, my God. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, before you exit, don't forget to hit that like button, and we'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. David, Taylor, hang on.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a